Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuel. Here with me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, over the past week, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has outlined the basics of the conspiracy hatched at the very summit of the Obama administration to sabotage and destroy first the candidacy of Donald Trump, but most important, the presidency of Donald Trump by setting in train all kinds of fraudulent intelligence and analyses that would essentially jeopardize the incoming Trump administration, lead to the appointment of a special prosecutor, and then probably to the indictment of various figures working for Trump, and then, of course, to the impeachment of Donald Trump. So she's laid out the case, and we talked a little bit about this, but the most important event was a meeting held on December the 9th in the White House, presided over by Susan Rice, Obama's national security advisor, but she was obviously a stand-in for Obama. And essentially the gravamen of that meeting, that they said, what we will do is we will deny all of the intelligence findings that we've received from professional analysts, which was that essentially Russia did not hack this election, and instead we will come up with a finding and say that Russia did hack this
Is that
election.
illegal? Is that illegal?
Well, that's a very good question. What is
Is it wrong? Yes, I think it's wrong,
but
obviously. But is it illegal?
well, it depends on illegal in according to U.S. statutes. And I think that's a very good question. So in terms of what U.S. statutes were violated, well, there were I think there were a number of them. But I think what was important was that essentially the intelligence analysts had said it hadn't taken place, and the Obama team decided, well, we're going to come up with an intelligence analysis, an intelligence community analysis drafted by CIA Director John Brennan that will come to the exact opposite conclusion.
And
And that was proved to be quite devastating for the incoming
yes, but my
Trump
point is
administration.
it was a political decision
But by whom?
by the Obama people to
Right. It was
to overlook, overturn, ignore, fabricate. But is that illegal?
well, that's a very good question. And here we can look at the if you look at the statutes, what statutes
And
can be
any
applied?
statute that you're going to read is not going to apply to Barack Obama.
Well, it's an interesting question because, of course, the Supreme Court had ruled last year that presidents enjoy immunity for criminal prosecution for acts that come within their official responsibilities, but not for acts that don't fall within their official
Okay, well,
responsibilities.
that's a tough one. That's a
That's a
tough.
tough one. So if in other words, if you hit the White House chef, that doesn't fall within your official responsibilities, and you can indeed be prosecuted for hitting
But
the White House chef.
screwing around with a political opponent?
Well, that probably would indeed fall within your official responsibility, or at least he could make that argument. He would probably make the argument. However, even if he makes that argument for himself, that doesn't apply to anyone else. They don't enjoy
And
immunity.
that's why I said this would not apply to Obama.
Right.
Other
I think
people,
that,
I
that
don't
that would be
know.
the case.
I don't know. I
However,
don't know.
but you have to keep in mind though that if Obama could still be impeached, they could still impeach him for what he did. I mean, they showed that Trump was impeached after he was already no longer president.
What
So they
about
got,
George Bush?
George Bush was never impeached. I mean,
Okay.
you could impeach him.
Could he be impeached?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think any president could be impeached. I
Yeah.
mean, I think a dead president could be impeached.
Yeah, that's right. I think Andrew Jackson, I've had a case open against him for a long
Right,
time.
right. So that could happen, but yes, Obama could be impeached, and then he would, yeah, then
But
at least that would be the punishment. Even then, he wouldn't be able to, like, they wouldn't be able to prosecute him if once could establish that this fell within my official responsibilities.
what bothers me about all of this? Would it bother me that Barack Obama would get a lot of heat and criticism for his um, uh, lies, his deceit? Oh yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, let him sweat a little bit. He never sweat as president, okay? But then again, as I brought up, so we go George Bush, roll him out, okay? Is Jimmy Carter still with us?
No, he died
That's
not
right.
long ago. Yeah.
Sorry, Jimmy. Okay. Um, you know what I mean. I mean, okay, you can't even do it to Biden because Biden doesn't remember he was president. Okay. But I find it really problematic, and I think what they did to Trump is wrong, and I hope that they retire that whole procedure. But the protections. I mean, the Trump team was so happy with the Supreme Court finding,
Right.
okay? But, under below that, I guess we can look at perjury charges. Is there a statute of
Well,
limitation on
perjury charges
perjury?
are more difficult because with perjury charges, there's the statute of limitations. Now, some of them had perjured themselves really within the last couple of years, particularly Brennan, because Brennan testified, I think, before the House Intelligence Committee and clearly lied there. That's within the last 2 years, so he could be prosecuted. But there are other statutes, and you know, you know, if any creative attorney, any killer attorney, can absolutely bring
Killer. Yeah,
charges.
killer.
Yeah, killer attorney. They did this with
Well,
Trump. No one made
what
him believe that
happened?
they could do this with Trump. They absolutely did it with Trump.
I don't know if we're getting divine intervention here, but for the first time since we've been doing this, our pictures, our boxes are on top. It's nice. Now I can see all the document. So whatever setting you have, hit default, please. Continue.
So here's 18 USC 1001, and it says, except as otherwise provided in this section, whoever in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the government of the United States knowingly and willfully falsifies, conceals, or covers up by any trick, scheme, or device or a material fact, makes any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation, makes or uses any false writing or document knowing the same to contain any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or entry, shall be fined and imprisoned for not more than 5 years. So there's plenty of scope within this statute.
Yeah,
Now,
but
yeah.
that's like this is what makes it so difficult. Okay, so let's say you like with the Pfizer warrant, you change the date or something, or you change a number, or you do the reverse. He did not. Okay, that's tampering. Okay, but I don't understand, and I truly want to understand is that, well, what's the intelligence community assessment of Russia interference in the election? Low confidence. Okay. Well, thank you for your information, but we interpret it differently. Okay. Is that illegal?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think it would be illegal and misleading.
It's
Not,
misleading.
well, that's
It's misleading, but is it
misleading.
illegal?
Misleading could rise to the level of a violation of the statute if you deliberately omit key pieces of information, such as that they have low confidence in this claim. Now, remember, they brought up this Pfizer warrant against Carter Page, something they knew was false. They knew this was all false. They knew when they applied for that Pfizer warrant, that the basis for it, the Steele dossier, was a fraud, was bogus, and they misled the court in letting the court believe that this was a reliable source. And they misled the court also to say that this article in Yahoo by Michael Isikoff was somehow an independent piece of evidence to indict Carter Page, whereas they knew, and when they drafted that warrant, that Michael Isikoff received this information from Steele. So they knew all this when they applied. That seems to me would absolutely fall within this under this statute. That's Comey. That's Comey.
Okay, good. Okay, see, this is where I thought we would go. Yes, Comey, Brennan, okay, Peter Strzok, all these characters here. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I find it, again, this is another series of frustrations that George and I have. It was a fraud. It's official. It was a fraud. Yeah, well, we knew that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Do you think I popped a bottle of champagne? No.
Right.
I mean, you aged me. You people aged me and frustrated me. You damaged my health and my psyche, okay? Because everything George and I were saying, George, you and I are only going to learn details.
Well,
We're not
at
going
the
to
same
learn
time,
anything more.
I don't see any reason why you can't press ahead with these indictments. Now, will they succeed? Who knows? Probably not. But
Probably.
nonetheless, look what they did to Trump. They brought charges against Trump that had never been brought against a president. Imagine indicting a president on the grounds that of the Espionage Act, that he had somehow misappropriated his own documents. I mean, it's just unheard of. Everyone had always assumed these are the president's documents, that the president has absolute right to his own documents. And they brought charges against him. Oh, this happened already after he used to be president. He had no right to these documents. They did that. And then and then they brought charges on about January the 6th. I mean, hey, he made a speech. That speech, he was trying to defraud the United States. Who'd have thunk that you could charge a president for defrauding the United States? So, if you have imaginative attorneys working for you, you can bring charges. Now, will they succeed? That's a really
Well, the
different
thing,
question.
I would really love to see these circus clowns in orange jumpsuits. I really would, George, because that would be justice. Okay. But you know what I think this whole slew of releasing of documents and all these issues that have been bent up in the MAGA psyche for so many years, all rightfully so. And I think transparency is good. But really, what worries me is that we need institutional changes. We don't need scalps. There has to be or should be a way to avoid this in the
Well,
future.
scalps are necessary because
Not
without that,
just only scalps.
right, but
Okay.
scalp, you see, we're going to say, oh, institutional change, but by and large, this doesn't seem to be an institutional problem because the professional intelligence people really didn't fail. I mean, they presented their arguments. They said they don't think Russia is in any position, is capable of hacking the election. I mean, they just think that it doesn't have the capability and it doesn't have the intention. Now, it is true that Tulsi Gabbard kind of confounded two separate issues, which was the hacking of the emails and then the hacking of the voting machines. And of course, Obama and the others, they immediately pounced on that. Well, we never said that they hacked the voting machines. No, but you said they hacked everything else.
Yeah, and their lackeys in the media acted in a most deceitful way by blurring the meaning of those terms, and I
Right.
think they did it intentionally. Okay,
Yes, of course, that's right. But if you go back to that time, the hysteria of Russiagate, it was repeatedly said, not, oh, Russia influenced this election. If they'd said that, that people would have said, who cares? I mean, everybody influences everything. But they said something specific. They said Russia hacked the election. They didn't say specific, oh, the voting machine. Russia hacked the election. You can that was the phrase over and over again, repeated MSNBC, CNN, Russia hacked the election. The election has no legitimacy. Trump is not a legitimate president. That went far beyond saying, oh, Russia exerted some influence on the election, because then you say, well, so did everyone else. I mean, so did Britain, so did Israel, so did France. I mean, so everybody exerts influence, but they hacked. That was the thing. And so when once you do that, and once you make that claim, and they knew that they were making that claim, they sought to delegitimize the Trump presidency. And I think that ultimately that there has to be some kind of a reckoning. And
There
I think
should be. There should
scalps,
be.
yeah. So
There
that's right. So
should be.
yeah, and, okay, you say the CIA. Let's say even going back to the days of the Gulf War. I mean, what went wrong wasn't really the professional analysts. It was the people at the top. It was the people at the Pentagon, all those Douglas Feith and Wolfowitz and Richard Pearl, Cheney, all of them who conspired to cook the books, so to speak, to say, well, this is our intelligence finding. But the professional analysts actually said, I think it's kind of dubious that he really has a weapons
Well,
of
I mean,
mass destruction. Yeah,
you could make that claim against Trump. Tulsi Gabbard,
yeah,
yeah, and then Trump did it too.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. This isn't to absolve Trump. I think Trump has not, has nowhere near sort of, conducted himself in any way with any sort of integrity on this.
I mean, what should happen, what might happen, what could happen, I don't know. But one thing I want transparency. I like seeing those PDF, documents about the presidential daily briefing.
Right.
That was that it would made it worth it, George. It made it worth it because obviously George and I weren't aware of that. Okay, we surmised it,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
See, I don't know. Maybe it's not enough for you. Maybe I'm getting soft, but I just want the satisfaction that people like ourselves called it right. Okay.
Well, I
And
think we did, and I think that what Tulsi Gabbard presented was very interesting, and things that I think we didn't quite know. Well, for example, the document that showed that on that issue of the Democratic Party hack, the FBI and the NSA had low confidence that the Russians were behind that hack. That was concealed. That we didn't know. We always had doubt. We doubted. We listened to Bill Binney, who knows about these things, who said, nah, I don't think that they did it. You can't do that kind of thing without the NSA spotting this. But here we have the actual document in which the FBI and the NSA said we have low confidence in attributing this DNC hack to Russia. That's very, very important because ultimately this was the crown jewel of
yeah,
the Russian hacking of the election. That was the crucial. Oh, they hacked this. They stole all these emails of Hillary Clinton, and then they passed this on to WikiLeaks, even though Julian Assange repeatedly said that Russia didn't, or no state actor was behind this. They ignored that. But now it turns out that the FBI and the NSA said we have low confidence in it. And that was hidden. When they repeated, when you remember when Clapper and Jay Johnson on October the 6th, flagrant interference in the election, on October the 6th, issued that statement. They said categorically, oh, Russia hacked the DNC server. This is, they didn't, there was no doubt in their mind. They just said, absolutely, we know this for a fact that Russia hacked the DNC server. And that clearly was a distortion of what the intelligence found, because the NSA of all agencies is the one best placed to know whether indeed Russia hacked the DNC server.
how much does this really matter at the end of the day, George? Because, you know, for me, I feel that, we've been, um, it's recognized that we saw this for what it was. I think, with Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald. I wish they would mention our names
No, they
once.
never do.
Anyway, um, they don't. But I just, all I wanted to know is that yes, they lied. And that gives me enough satisfaction, okay? Because the Supreme Court ruling, they're never going to get Obama. They're never going to get
Yeah,
him,
I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think so.
okay? But in looking at the statute in front of us right now, what is it? What they're called? A killer lawyer. I think a killer lawyer could work with this.
I
I
think
think so.
so. I think so. I think there's enough, and there's other statutes. That's 18101. There's 18371. If two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in any manner or for any purpose, and one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, each shall be fined under this title or imprisoned.
It's interesting with that language, and this is something that that ground we've been over many times before. Commit any offense against the United States. But see, the Jim Comeys and the Clappers and the Brennans are saying, no, we're defending the
Right, that
United.
will say, but then yeah, but they can make that argument, but you say, okay, well, make your case in court. But this is the statute they used against Trump, this 18371. They said, oh, he has committed an offense against the United States because he was trying to overturn the election. Well, what were you doing? That's exactly what you were doing. You were trying to overturn the election. And in the case of Comey, he did a lot of different things to try to overturn that election. It's not just the Carter Page FISA warrant. Then he wrote all these memos about every single conversation he had with Trump. He never wrote memos about any other conversation, always with Trump. Then he leaked these memos, this was the property of the U.S. government. He leaked it to a journalist in order to get it into the New York Times and in order to get a special counsel appointed. I mean, he really wasn't conspiring to
It's
overturn the Trump presidency.
You bring up such a good point. He had a vivid memory and recollection on certain things. Other
Right.
things I don't recall.
I don't recall. That's right. He never
Don't recall.
amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know. Don't remember. Yeah, this guy is supposed to be so intelligent, but he could never remember anything. Yeah, I. Do you think the P tape was real? Remember, he was asked that on
I
one of
remember
these.
that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. Then why were you head of the FBI?
Why
If you don't,
exactly? And if you have no evidence that the P tape is real, how can you go around saying you don't know? You just basically you have no evidence for it. This was just somebody shooting his mouth off about this P tape, and you're saying I don't know. Could be. Who knows? Uh, so, but
I'd be very curious because obviously, George, the claim out there is that this is just a diversion. How do you react to that?
well, I think this is real, and
Well, it's real to you and me,
that
okay?
exactly because you have to say Trump has been talking about this for many years, as has Tulsi Gabbard, and many people, many of us, the two of us, Aaron, Matty, and everybody else, have been talking about this for a long time. I don't think one can say, oh, the only reason Trump is talking about this is that well, he's worried about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. No, I think he's there's a consistent record of his being very, very agitated about what was done to him in 2016, 2017. My own feeling, you may disagree, is that I think the Jeffrey Epstein thing is going to turn out to be a nothing burger. This, I think, we know this is a substantial. This has been going on, and there's substance here.
Yeah, but George, again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
Right.
It's too easy, and it takes up a lot of time, and it's exhausting. But RussiaGate was a nothing burger, and look how long it lasted and the
Right.
impact that it
Right.
had.
Right. But
That's my thing. A lot of people really misunderstand me when it comes to this issue because I'm looking at the impact of it. I will wait for documents instead of hearsay.
right.
Okay. When you show me information, then we can go have at it. That's fine.
Right.
But up and until then, I'm just going to say,
Right.
okay, but how is this story being used, abused?
Right.
weaponize.
Right.
That's my
Right. But I
view
think
of
this
this
is
whole
what
thing.
we now have. I mean, what Tulsi has revealed is, I think, damning. I think the revelation that the DNC hacked with low confidence in attributing it to Russia. That means the whole story of Russia getting these emails and passing it on to Julian Assange, which we always knew this is so unlikely. Why would the Russians be interested in
Why?
whether Hillary Clinton, legitimately got the nomination instead of Bernie Sanders? What the hell do the Russians care about that? So it always was
Because whoever wins, it's a bad outcome for Russia.
it's a
Okay.
exactly, it's a bad outcome. So why the idea that they would go to all this trouble to get these emails because they reflect badly on Hillary Clinton and with championing Bernie Sanders. That's why it was always more likely whoever was behind this was a Bernie Sanders supporter and who was upset about what was done to Bernie Sanders.
Hillary Clinton's entire political career reflects badly on her.
Exactly.
Okay, so leave it.
Right.
I mean, and that's one of the things that I found myself repeating over and over again. The Russia was trying to sow social discord in America. You don't need an outside country to do that.
No, no,
Americans
no.
can do it all by
No.
themselves.
No, you don't. And then she presented documents that within the intelligence community, they were coming to the conclusion Russia had no preference as to who would be the winner. That was their conclusion. They said, oh, they just want to sow discord and so on, but they had no preference.
Maybe you can remember the guy's name, but I mean, he was supposed to be this Kremlin mole, and he
Oh
was
yeah, the one who managed to wangle himself a nice six-bedroom house in Virginia.
yeah. But everybody here's a mole for U.S. intelligence. He leaves Russia, not defects. He leaves Russia. He moves to America
Yeah,
under his own
yeah,
name.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, that
Okay,
was
I mean,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a gig. That's a
That that is,
gig.
that is and managed somehow to afford a six-bedroom house in Virginia. You see some pictures of this house. That's some house. How where did he get the money to buy a house like that?
Under his own
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's right. So that was an important finding, and then this was the consensus on December the 7th, 2016. The intelligence community was about to present their presidential daily briefing saying Russia really had no impact on this election. Obama didn't want to hear this, and they came up with a completely different, diametrically opposed briefing. That seems to me defrauding the United States.
Yes, but
You're
it's also
ignoring what your own intelligence analysts are
see
telling
that's
you.
where we're at loggerheads. He made a political decision.
Yeah, yes, but it's still
See,
defrauding.
that's where that we need to be able to square the circle here. Where did this meet? Because I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Number one, Obama is off the hook. The
Yeah,
Supreme Court has already
I
said
think
that.
so. Brian
Okay.
Lynch. Yeah,
By and large, thank you. You're right. By and large.
right.
Okay. Now we get down to statute of limitations. We get down to
There's no statute of limitations on this.
well, on perjury.
No, on perjury there is, but on these statutes, what we're just looking at now, the defrauding the United States, I think that still applies. I don't think the statute of limitations applies here. So they could still be
Well,
prosecuted for
to
this.
flip the script, because I'm trying to think, outside the box. Given that first paragraph,
Right.
well, if this isn't a conspiracy to defraud the American people, then what is? Give me an example of a conspiracy theory to defraud, and tell me how it's different from this. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I think if you deliberately um, present conclusions on the basis of dubious evidence and deliberately ignore um, serious evidence, then I think you say you're committing fraud against the United States. And I'm thinking of when David Irving when he was involved in that lawsuit with that woman, awful woman. Now what the judge he was always going to lose that case. But what was interesting is the argument that the judge made against Irving is that you are very selective in your use of evidence. You pay attention to these couple of documents, and then you ignore 200 documents that argue the opposite. And when you do that, then you are essentially defrauding your readers because you're being so selective. You're being so cherry picking your evidence that you're actually lying. You're deceiving your readers. Now, maybe that's
Well,
unfair.
that's what
But I thought it was
historians.
an interesting argument.
Yeah, but
That's
that's what
exactly the
historians.
argument you can make here against Brennan. Here was you're being presented this evidence, and instead of that, you're coming to the conclusion nobody else had concluded that Putin preferred Trump over Clinton, and that Putin interfered in this election in order to secure the election for Trump. No intelligence analysis had come to that conclusion. You ignored all of that and chose to go with Christopher Steele and this guy, this guy, this Russian in Virginia.
Well, I suppose you could. I'm sure the argument will be made. Well, Trump was certified. Trump was inaugurated. Where is the defraud? How is the American people defrauded? He was certified and he was inaugurated. So where's the fraud?
The fraud, well, that's right. The fraud was to instigate the government against Trump.
How you separate politics from that? That's my problem.
Well, it's obviously, well, it depends. It was politics that they knew would eventually lead to into Trump essentially, you know, debilitated during his presidency.
Well, but that's Monica Lewinsky.
Right, but it depends on it depends on what. I mean, but how would Monica Lewinsky? I mean, that was Clinton did this himself.
Yeah, but what I'm just saying
Nobody
is
encouraged him.
it's weaponized. It became a political issue because it was about his lack of candor, his poor moral stature.
But
I'm
how is
just.
this? But okay, but
I
how is
mean,
this?
I was thinking about it today. I was thinking about it today. You have the Mississippi River. It empties into the Gulf of Mexico, right? And the Gulf of Mexico is part of the Atlantic Ocean, right? Well, the Mississippi River is drinking water, pure water. It's
Mhm.
not salt water. And I've always found it really curious. What happens when where, at what point do you say this is fresh water and this is salt water? And there's that point. I mean, I've seen photographic,
But
from
yeah, okay,
satellites,
but
stuff like that.
I don't see here that anything that isn't a fraud. I mean, this is as fraudulent as you can be.
Yeah, I just
I
the
mean, they have a
was
statute. Here's the statute that says defrauding the United States. It's not defrauding your investors. Everyone knows, okay, well, that's defrauding my investors. The investors give you money.
yeah.
You don't deliver whatever the investors expected from you. Then you're defrauding the investors. It's the statute that says you are defrauding the United States. And I think that would apply. You are defrauding the United States.
I don't know if a political you can. In this case, it's a defrauding the United States. It's just in a different realm. George,
But it's the statute. That's the statute.
I'm just spitballing with you here. Okay,
Okay.
I don't have an answer. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it because there's countervailing trends here. And at what's the data point that we can say, this is where we can apply 18 U.S. Code 371.
Mhm. Well, I would have thought, as an intelligence chief who ignores his own intelligence and lies about the findings of the intelligence, because he was lying, clearly lying to the public about the findings of intelligence in order to secure a particular outcome. And the outcome, they knew perfectly what the outcome would be to delegitimize and the presidency of Donald Trump. I think that's a fraud against the United States. I mean, it's you can argue, well, what does defrauding the United States mean? And that maybe that's but that at least there is a statute that says defrauding the United States.
Yeah, I mean,
But that's what it is.
and in the moral realm, it was a huge fraud. Okay. Was it a legal one? And I
Well,
think that's the case they're going to have to make.
they're going to have to be.
In lieu of that, what's very important to me is Tulsi keep churning out those
Right,
documents
right.
because if anything, and maybe this is, self-serving here, you know, I want to know just how right we were. What did we miss? What two dots we should have never connected that we did? For me, it's almost kind of an exercise right now because I do not see this is going to have much legs outside of people like ourselves.
Oh, no, I think it will have legs if they go ahead. They've already set up a strike force. That means they're already moving forward with possibly bringing indictments. So this is, if they'd set up, oh, we're going to set up a special counsel, then oh, well, that's not going anywhere. This is going to be just another John Durham, run out the clock for about 3 years and then publish a report. But since they have put together a strike force, I think it's quite likely that there will be some indictments. I would have thought Brennan and Comey are particularly vulnerable. I would have thought Susan Rice is quite vulnerable. I mean, Susan Rice, obviously, when she drafted that email to herself, she evidently thought that when, the famous, and President
Yeah.
Obama said, everything must be done by the book. Everything must be done by the book. She obviously thought that she had some legal
Yeah,
liabilities to attend to.
I wouldn't be surprised during all of this. I hope you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if the theory of the unitary presidency is going to be invoked again, because Susan Rice will be saying that she is acting as an extension of Barack Obama, which
Right.
would give her immunity. I'm not saying that's a good theory of the case, but we've seen as a result of the two Iraq wars, the unitary presidency, it's very elastic, isn't it,
Right,
George?
right, right. You can't make the argument that I was acting as the mouthpiece or the hands of the president. Remember, Bannon and Peter Navarro tried to make that argument about why they didn't they ignored congressional subpoenas. They say no, we were basically acting on the basis of instructions from the president. They didn't buy that, and they both went to prison for contempt of Congress. So I don't think you can make that case. Oh well, I was just acting as
They might
as
try
the
again.
arms and the mouth and the hands of the president. That's
Well,
not going
this
to work for you.
also it brings up a really important question. Is something that we've talked about many, many times. Is just the relative legitimacy of the judiciary right now. I mean, they're going to have to shop these. They're going to have to shop for judges for these, George.
Well, they're gonna have to shop, and this is where, and I'm not sure the answer to that, to be honest, is that if they go to D.C., then these cases get thrown out automatically. I mean, that's it's not even going to get to trial. They'll get thrown out by the judge before even a
They
jury
need
sits.
Montana. They need Idaho.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure about, can they do that? Can they move this to some other jurisdiction? I don't know the answer to that. I haven't heard anyone address that issue, because if it's in DC, then yeah, then forget about it. And even if you get to trial, you're going to have a 95% Democrat jury. You know, they're going to acquit everyone. I mean, they acquitted people in the cases that Durham brought. They acquitted people who essentially had already admitted lying. I mean, they'd already admitted
Yeah, I
lying.
mean,
Even so,
what we
they were
need
acquitted.
with this strike force, what they're hoping for, I'm sure, is they're looking for someone that will break ranks, okay, and turn state's evidence, okay, because what Trump wants, he wants scalps, okay? It's very important that somebody goes down for it. I feel that pain, okay? I'm not
Yeah,
mimicking Bill Clinton here, but somebody has to be held responsible for the
yeah,
chaos
yeah,
that was, I mean, the first 2 years, 2.5 years of his presidency, that's all we talked about, George.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I think so, and I think the long-term effects. I think without RussiaGate, there'd been no war in Ukraine. I mean, that's my view. Maybe
I
I'm
think
wrong. I
that's
think, but
really,
that's my view. That the
I
no,
agree. I
yeah,
agree.
no,
I
no,
agree.
yeah, yeah. And so I think it's had huge impact on the world. And I mean, relations were already fraught between Russia and the United States in 2016, but nothing like what happened after 2016. I mean, and it was RussiaGate, and then the Europeans, the slimy, weedy Europeans, seized on this and then ran with it and coming up with all they all claimed, oh, Russian interference, and then we had these phony scandals like the Skripals and Navalny, and then it just
Just as a
escalated.
funny aside, um, I looked at Al Jazeera today, and they have an article about what Tulsi Gabbard's doing with the so-called RussiaGate hoax, as I put it. And remarkably, George, again, the lack of introspection. So
Right.
here's a an article written about what Tulsi Gabbard is doing, naming names, making the claim. And you know how they ended the article? Other areas where Russia interfered in election. I
Right.
just thought,
Right.
like, the editor, did you even read the article? Okay, because all of these other Russian interferences, they were all based on
Right.
RussiaGate.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
was
No,
the
that's right.
template.
That's right.
Hello, editor, did you read the article?
That's right. I think it's also very important to emphasize because what the media are now doing, profoundly dishonest. Oh, this is old hat. This is, who's interested? Yeah, 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 yeah. And anyway, who claimed that Russia hacked the voting machines? Oh, no, no one said that. Now stop it already. And say, I remember those days. It was 24/7 Russia. It wasn't just, and so, yeah, you didn't say voting machines. You said Russia hacked the election over and over again. You said that this election was completely tainted from start to finish by what Russia did. You didn't say they hacked the voting machine, but you said the election was completely null and void because of what Russia did. So they're lying, and by dint of repetition, they say, "Oh, this is
Well,
all."
another thing they do. I saw for the record, everyone, I haven't watched CNN for a quarter century, so I don't know what CNN's up to. But I saw a clip, and they were saying, the justification. Well, we were investigating, we were covering an investigation,
Right,
but I would retort, but you had no interest in investigating
right.
the so-called investigation.
No, no, no,
Because
no,
if you
no.
had had that interest, you
Right,
would have had
right.
genuine questions like the rest of us
Right,
did.
right. No, no, they never did that. And they handed themselves these Pulitzer Prizes. Like New York Times collected a Pulitzer Prize, Washington Post collected a Pulitzer Prize for their coverage of Russiagate. It was a fraud. It was a complete and utter fraud. And we knew it at the time. And really, everything that's come out since, particularly these Tulsi revelations, showed that it was a total fraud. But how did it acquire this standing? It only acquired the standing because of what Obama and then Brennan acting under the instructions of Obama, and then of course Comey also acting under the instructions of Obama. They set in train, the process that led to Russia. One other thing is about Obama, it's not just what December the 9th. Remember with Michael Flynn. Remember, Michael Flynn was under investigation, that bogus, ridiculous, that he was having an affair with this Russian woman. I mean, Flynn is a straight-laced person. He wasn't having an affair with anyone. This was deliberately, they put out this story that he was having an affair with some Russian woman. And then on January the 6th, when the FBI said, look, we've got nothing on Flynn, we need to drop this case, it was Obama and Biden says, oh, no, 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 you can't drop this case against Flynn. You've got the Logan Act. You got to keep this investigation open. Because of the Logan Act. So that was again an intervention by Obama in order to keep this going.
For our viewers' sake, George, how often is the Logan Act invoked and how successful is it in the
It has
prosecution?
only once in its history, 200 years. In 200 years, it's only been once and unsuccessfully brought up because, of course, it's a violation of the First Amendment. Anybody can go talk to anybody. I mean, the whole idea of you're interfering in foreign policy. What the hell does it mean? Anyway, you're a private citizen. You can interfere away with foreign policy.
And you touched upon it, but I think it's worth stressing before we end is that what we did in watching the hoax unravel is that because we weren't in the room, we
Right.
didn't see these presidential daily briefings.
Right.
Obviously, we didn't. But how we dissected the and interrogated this hoax was through media
Right.
coverage. That's the way
Right.
we would check the veracity of the logic of a
Right.
statement, and that's what we did
Right.
maybe for 1,000 hours,
Right.
George.
Right.
I never counted, but I
Right.
mean, so there should be another reminder of just how dishonest
Yep.
the media
Yep.
is and how much they're in bed with
Yep.
power.
Yep.
And another thing that should tell us is that, well, if Russia could interfere, then why other countries? How did other countries interfere? That's never asked.
No,
Okay.
no, 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 no. That's very important because if all you were going to say, Russia interfered in the election, okay, did it interfere in any way more than Israel normally interferes in U.S. elections? And did it interfere as much as Great Britain did? And Great Britain interfered in a very big way by having Christopher Steele, who was a former senior figure within MI6. When you're in MI6, even though you retire from MI6, you continue to work for MI6. And nobody ever retires from MI6. That was a big, big British interference in the U.S. Election. So the whole thing about Russia interfered. Well, okay, let's compare. What about what everybody else does in every election? And ultimately, it's not illegal to interfere in other countries' elections. I mean,
It's called legal bribery, everybody.
right? I mean, it is there's that guy, that horrible comedian, John Oliver. I never watch him. He's an awful person. He's British. He's not even an American citizen. He's actually a British citizen, and he does a show. He did a show, daily show on HBO, I think, about the election. Now, no one says, "Oh, that's British interference in the election." Imagine if a Russian had had a show on HBO and said, "Ah, yes, I want to talk about the election." He's obviously working for Putin. This is Putin's agent working. I mean, they remember that thing that they did, that report, the declassified report of the ICA, which was about RT in the 2012 election. They brought that up, but they don't bring up, well, what about John Oliver? I mean, what is he? Well, what RT did in the 2012 election, and what impact did RT have in the 2012 election?
I remember that. It was like what, 25 pages, 7 pages were blank,
Yeah.
and the evidence presented in the report about RT was like 5 years old
Yes, that's right.
or
That's
7 years old.
yeah, so yeah, 2012. So 20, in other words, and then you're wondering why are we reading about, page after page about the 2012 election? I mean, why? So who cares about the 2012 election? One of the most boring elections in history, and then what RT did in that election. So, um, but I think I think Tulsi has presented enough documents to say that there was a conspiracy. I mean, I tend to agree with you. I don't think you can. Obama's not. You can't touch Obama. It's going to be very difficult. I think you can touch others. I think Brennan,
Well, I
Comey,
hope so.
Susan Rice
I'm
are
all for it.
vulnerable.
Yeah, because not only did these people, and now I will say, in a non-legal way, considering our conversation here, these people in the most general way defrauded the
Right,
American people. Okay,
right, right.
and what's worse is they've made a lot of money
Yes,
since then.
yes, they did. They
He
made a
struck
lot.
as a professor at Georgetown or something.
I think James Kobe, I think it was it. I think it's ethics. I think he does ethics, professor of ethics and politics. Ethics. He's a man.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that's a pyromaniac teaching
yeah.
fire safety. Yeah,
That's
right.
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were all handsomely rewarded. And Mary McCord, and of course, Victoria Newland. She was at that meeting, the December the 9th
How's
meeting.
it going over there at Columbia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and her career had so much more ahead of it.
Yeah. Well,
God.
she may come back. She hasn't been. She's still relatively young. I mean, if the Democrats return to power, first of all, there's going to be real vengeance against the Republicans, particularly against the Trump people.
Yeah,
Okay, but the Democrats.
if Trump is building supermax prisons in El Salvador, the
Right.
Democrats will be building them in the United
Yeah, yeah,
States.
yeah. That's right. So if the Democrats do return, I can see Victoria Newland returning with the Democrats. So that, don't count her out yet.
Yeah, she creates a large footprint, if you know what
Yeah,
I mean. Okay.
yeah,
All right,
exactly.
everybody. George and I got to go back and touch on this from time to time and see where it goes. I mean, just to reiterate, I'm just for self-satisfaction, I'm glad that this is being released, okay, because it's part of the record, and transparency is what the only way we can move forward here. So keep doing it, Tulsi, keep doing it. But other things in the administration have to, and they have to release other things too, if you know what I mean, if we want to keep the ship going there. All right, everybody, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Locals. That means you can go to thegaggle.locals.com. Fingers crossed we have a live stream tomorrow. I can't say for sure. A couple things have come up. Um, but George will take the reins on Tuesday.
Exactly. And then think with the issue of the dogs is particularly salient because
It's
they say, yeah,
vexing. It's very vexing.
it's very vexing, and they like the word salient. That's their favorite word. So they say, yeah, we carried the load during RussiaGate. There were years and years we were carrying this heavy burden, unrewarded, and we kind of want compensation for all the work. So, they've been studying the Tulsi documents, and they say, yeah, we were right. We want remuneration, food, drink, everything. So I kind of agree with the dogs. They need a lot of sustenance immediately. So if you have anything lying around in your bank account and your under the sofa cushion, anywhere, straight into the tip jar. No messing around. Put it all in. Exactly, pour it right in. That's it. The dogs are quite particular about that. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can work on the technology, and above all, we're going to be able to keep the dogs quiet for a little bit. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.